everyone, it's Raina. So I am doing a video for the new moon in Gemini, which is happening on May 25th. And for those in the United States, this is on a Thursday. And it's happening at 4 degrees of Gemini. And one of the things that is so fascinating about astrology and the tarot is the connection with numerology. Numerology is the energy of numbers. So I did not realize initially that there was a connection between degrees and certain energy that they hold. And the number 4 is a number of foundation. It's a number of stability. So when you have a new moon at 4 degrees, that's actually really good for that kind of building. And, obviously you could be building new things. But what does Gemini represent? Well, Gemini is the ruler of the 3rd house. Its ruler, Mercury, is all about communication of different kinds. In 2017, what is the primary type of communicating that we do? Internet-based, right? That's how I am delivering this message. That's how you're receiving it. Even when you're talking to family and friends, you may post on Facebook rather than speak to them in person. But even if you were to call them, that's a form of communication too. And communication has become a major thing. Even it's been enhanced since we've had the internet. Obviously, people have been talking as long as there have been people. They've been writing. They've been doing all kinds of forms of communication. But what's really exciting is that with the internet, we can touch so many fellow souls. So the thing about Gemini, though, is that it's kind of a bit of a, I don't know if you would call it a dilemma, because Gemini is the messenger, but do they listen? A lot of Gemini people like to talk, but they sometimes are scattered. They lack focus. So this is something for the new moon to really consider. Whether you're a Gemini or not, is, can I listen? Am I able to go back and forth with people? Because that is what true communication is. And being on the internet like I am, I see so many examples of people who try to drown out other people's voices. And they accuse them of negative things, negative intentions. And so one possible intention that you could set for this new moon is to be more tolerant of other people's opinions. Even if you think that they really are not correct, and I'm putting that in air quotes. Because I really believe that we can learn from everybody. Even those people that we find offensive. At the time of this new moon, we're going to have Mercury in Taurus. And that's kind of interesting because Taurus is a fixed earth sign. Taurus sometimes can be very dogmatic and can be very, nah, putting their fingers in their ears and saying, I can't hear you, because they have their own point of view. So it might be kind of one of those situations where there's communication happening, but there are still a lot of walls being put up, where people really are insistent upon their opinion being heard. And the other thing, too, is that we have a square between the Sun and Neptune and the Moon and Neptune. So this is kind of energy that I have been sensing for a while now, whether or not it has actually been occurring exactly when I think it is. And this is regarding our emotional expectations as well as our sense of self being diluted in some way. With Neptune, there's always this distortion. Now, it can be, if you are conscious of it, you can tap into the spiritual side of things, which Neptune does provide, and elevate yourselves that way. But since there's a square involved, it tends to kind of throw out these roadblocks, and it makes it challenging to see things realistically. And as long as you are not acting on that, that's fine. Oh, and then I saw Mars square Neptune, so Mars is going to be squaring Neptune as well. So this is where we get off on these idealistic, tangents and try to save the world, and in the meantime get ourselves in deeper. So make sure that you're being motivated from a very clear place. There are people out there who are very sophisticated in preying on people's hopes and wishes, and they know exactly, what buttons to push in people. As a matter of fact, I was reading something about Facebook, how they manipulated people, especially young people who are vulnerable, into certain, I don't know if it was just behaviors or emotions. And, that could be like a major psyops. It probably is, Facebook. So the idea of, not to get off track too much about Facebook, but the very idea of comparison. I think that comparison is one of the main ways that people drag themselves down, comparing themselves to others. And Facebook is absolutely about that. And it's very easy for people to look at Facebook and then end up feeling bad about themselves, like somehow they don't measure up. And that kind of thing may even be orchestrated to produce these feelings, because if you're in that lower state, you're easier to manipulate. So just remember that whether it's the news or any other type of media that can come at you, the internet, people's opinions, you don't know who those people are. Some of those people may be paid to say whatever it is that they're paid to say. There's manipulation going on all around us. They use people who are so-called experts to try to influence us. And more than ever, it's important to really stand in your truth and be educated. But be educated in your own way. Don't just assume that the mainstream has all the answers for you. So the other thing that's happening is Venus is in Aries, so Venus is very bold. But Venus is, it's a harmonious aspect. Venus, it's not with the Sun, because of the degree span, it's not going to be considered a sextile. But it will be a sextile with Mars. So Venus and Mars are in harmony. And Mars is in Gemini. So these are two masculine energies, fire and air. And this can produce a lot of, I would say, anybody who wants to start a romance, they can feel this sense of, not being a shrinking violet, but kind of being bold and playful. Because Gemini is very playful. It's the inner child in a lot of ways. I know that some of you don't live in the Northern Hemisphere, but for those of us who do, Gemini is a springtime sign. It's associated with the spring, so it's associated with newness. It's the first air sign. And this is one of the reasons why Geminis and those with a prominent Gemini love gossip and things like that, because that is a more immature form of communication. However, I don't want to judge it because it serves a purpose, you know. All these things serve a purpose for us, even gossip. And gossip is kind of a term that is relative anyway. But whether it's a tabloid versus a, you know, supposedly reputable, I was going to say supposedly reputable paper, but these days I trust the tabloids more than the so-called reputable newspapers. But that kind of a status, it doesn't matter, because sometimes we derive benefit from hearing about celebrities, because for most people, they do not live those kind of lives. And there's a lot of wisdom to be garnered from seeing that people who are wealthy, famous, and beautiful still are subject to the same laws of the material world. So anything, you can take wisdom from anything. So anyway, what else did I want to say about this? I just wanted to say, there's going to be some wonderful aspects between the sun and moon to Jupiter. So I just told you about the sun and moon to Neptune, but there's going to be trines from the sun and moon in Jupiter. And this is right before Jupiter goes direct. So this should be a very good time for anything related to maybe even visualization, you know, as is the case of any new moon when you try to plant seeds, but also for getting in touch with yourself. And, you know, with the trine between the sun and Jupiter, it's like you can really, if you are aware of this, you can really feel your worth. Jupiter is all about expansion. And in this instance, it's about expanding the totality of who you are, the sun. So that can be very auspicious. So let me get to the cards. Oh, you know what I should have done, though? I should have told you when this is occurring. And this is according to my calculator. It says 2:45. I think I heard 2:42. This is Central Standard Time. So you have to add wherever you are in the world to that. If you're in Europe, I think it would be at least 6 hours, so it'll probably be in the evening. So looking at the cards, let's see what we have here. I did pick cards from some of my oracle decks, as well as a card from the tarot. So the card from this is the, it's funny, they don't have the name of the deck, but I think this is I'll show you the Keepers of the Light. This is Odin. Psychic insight. Your third eye is open. See truth for what it is. Follow your intuition. So again, even with hard aspects to Neptune, there can still be this sense of contact with the mystical realm. The key, I think, is to make sure that you're not just projecting what you want, your hopes onto a situation, any situation that you're faced with, but that you're really seeing things for what they are. Okay, I'm going to try to see. Okay, so Odin is the Norse All-Father God, who is revered to the present day. He is a powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing God. His twin flame is Freya, and like her, he has a raven totem. The story goes that he surrendered one of his eyes at a mystical spring called, I was thinking of spring, but it's actually a watering hole, called Mimir, so that he could gain the wisdom of the ages. He is a strong but somewhat wild character who helps us reawaken our natural psychic instincts and open our third eye so that we can look beyond the physical senses and into the spiritual realms. He also helps us recognize that it's okay to have insights into what's happening next. After all, we are the creators of our path. Odin guards the runic alphabet too and works closely with signs, symbols, and omens. You're being encouraged to look beyond what your physical eyes are showing you. Look within and follow your intuition or psychic visions. You may want to plan ahead at this time. It's important to keep your mind and energy focused on the best possible outcome. There will be signs and symbols from the light to tell you you are on the right path. Be aware of winged beings gracing your path as a wink from Odin and the light keepers to say that they are honoring your work. And that's another thing too. Gemini is all about gathering knowledge. And we also have to gather wisdom. We have to know the difference between the world and knowledge, which helps us to navigate the world or to understand the world, and wisdom, which is about that which is unseen. And that, sometimes lately people are like, prove it. And if you get sucked into that argument, then it will be very hard to kind of stand up for spiritual things. So it's not, to me, it's not even worth it, because everyone has their own path. If somebody doesn't want to believe in something, that's their right. I'm not here to force feed anybody into anything. But by the same token, we have to honor the spiritual, those of us who are interested or passionate about this. And it's not okay for other people to try to force us to be how they are. So the next deck or card is from the Native Spirit deck. And I picked the Elder card. I love deer. I think that's a deer, right? It's not. Sometimes I see deer in my area. They even come and walk on my lawn sometimes, which is really cool. The card meaning of Elder is entering your power, standing strong. You are a leader, stepping into the light. Let your truth be heard and felt by others. Make a stand in life. You carry deep inner wisdom. You are a teacher and a leader in the deepest sense of the words. You are a beacon for others. Your native spirit wants you to know. In native cultures, the elders, tribal chiefs, and clan leaders are looked to for advice and leadership. When this card chooses you, it's time to step into your leadership role. An elder walks the path, stomps the grass down, and throws the boulders out of the way, so that the path is easier for others. Sometimes you might find yourself alone or tired, but know that what you are doing is making a difference in the lives of many. The greatest leaders are those who know how to serve, supporting others to reach their dreams. Even if you've been in the background in the past, right now it is your turn to step forward and become the light for others. The journey. Being an elder and tribal leader means speaking your truth, even if it's hard or even if you're afraid. If there's anyone you need to stand up to, this is the time. Being a leader means supporting others. So if there's anyone you need to support or make amends with, this is the time. And it's so funny because I was going to call this whole reading Speaking Your Truth before I picked these cards. And And then I kind of paused and I said, well, I'm not sure, because Gemini is a communicator, but it's not necessarily coming from a personal standpoint. It's more of just being the messenger. So in the case of, like, I would think of more of a fire sign, like, for instance, I'm a Sagittarius, I always like to say that, but that's supposed to be the sign of the sage, the teacher, the spiritual teacher. That kind of person, and that can get very preachy, that can get very strident. But Gemini, which is the opposite sign of Sagittarius, tends to be more of the reporter, the man on the street. And because Gemini is also a mutable sign, and it's like this mercurial, changeable energy. And Gemini people, or people with a prominent Gemini, can morph into what they need to be for a specific situation. So I always think of Gemini as not promoting a personal point of view. I even think of somebody like Bob Dylan, or even Prince, who went through many different spiritual transformations, different religions that they participated in. And whenever they were in that religion, they may have been very vocal about it, and then they got into something else. And that's how they are. They're not supposed to be set in stone like that. But I was going to say, when you look at the word elder, you also think of age. And in our culture, do older people have a voice? Are we just all about 20-somethings and nothing? If you're 20-something, good for you. But there is wisdom to be had. And not just, I'll tell you, there's some 20-somethings who are extremely advanced spiritually. And I'm like blown away by them. And there's a saying, there's no fool like an old fool. But if you are somebody who is older and you do have things to share, I think it's good to share them, not in a judgmental way and not shoving it down somebody's throat, but sometimes, our society is so, I don't know what you'd call it, just torn apart, that people are not communicating, the older generation with the younger generation, and it really can be helpful. And some of them are hungry to hear what you have to say, so don't think that you are totally irrelevant. Okay, now this is the one that really got me. This is Doreen Virtue's Ascended Masters deck, and I got right. And I was thinking about that because that's another thing about writing with Gemini. Oh, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. Let me see. Okay, so I always pronounce it Thoth. I was like, how do you pronounce this? Thoth? Egyptian. It's actually pronounced Tehote. Oh, okay, I've heard that. Or Thoth, I guess they say you can say it. You drew this card as a concrete reminder to write. You've been receiving a lot of signs and feelings to write lately, so let this card be the message that leads you to take action. Get out a pad of paper or your laptop computer and begin writing. Don't worry about punctuation, grammar, or spelling, as you can take care of those details later. For now, just express your thoughts and feelings as they flow into your mind and body. Additional meanings for this card. Keep a daily journal of your feelings and experiences. Write down your intentions, goals, and desires. Channel messages from your guides and angels. Your life's purpose involves writing. Write an article or book. Tehote is the Egyptian god of writing, manifestation, astronomy, and esoteric arts. He's an aspect of Hermes, Oh my God. That's Mercury, baby. The teacher of the Hermetic principles of alchemy and divine magic, who had many incarnations. He is considered the originator of written languages and was a prolific author and scribe of the ascended gods. Called upon Tehotet for help with any writing project, or to gain a deeper understanding and proficiency with manifestation principles. That is very synchronistic for obvious reasons because of the connection with the new moon in Gemini. So I really don't have to say much more about that. Obviously, some people don't like to write, but you never know how therapeutic it can be, even if you don't think you're a good writer, just to keep a journal or something like that, or to write a poem and to see how it makes you feel. I find that doing creative things always is meditative and therefore very purifying, and it can really calm the nerves and things like that, so that's cool. Now, I picked a card from this is a law of attraction deck that I have. I'll show you the way it looks on the outside. And I got courage. My fear of rejection does not stop me from bravely going forward. It's awesome. And that's also true if you are somebody who wants to be creative, is that sometimes the fear of rejection is very strong. Of course, nowadays, if you, like, let's say you always dreamed of writing a book, you can just self-publish it. So don't ever think I did that. And it's a good idea, obviously, if you don't think that you're a good editor, to get somebody to help you. But it really is a very fulfilling kind of an experience. And I recommend it to anybody. And it's free, you know. So the tarot card that I picked was the Chariot. And this is the card that, at first I was thinking, oh, I wonder why I'm picking this card. This is a card of victory, but it comes from focus. And you see he's holding the reins of the horse. And this is what I was saying. Gemini can be a brilliant sign. It's an intellectual sign, being an air sign. But there's always the danger of scattering one's forces. So it's very important for people who have a Gemini, prominent Gemini in their chart, or just maybe have gotten into a bad habit of thinking that they are multitasking when really they're not giving their full attention to one thing, that all of us need to practice this. I know I do. And what happens is that you really pour all of that energy into one thing. And this is what they talk about in meditation, about one-pointedness. Because then the power gets concentrated into one thing at a time. And they even mention this about eating, that you're supposed to, when you eat, just eat, because you just do whatever task is at hand. And you put all of your energy into that. And then you're less likely to overeat, and you're more likely to have that sense of, what would we call it, being at one with whatever it is that you're doing, which I think is very important. So anyway, I hope you guys got something from this, and I wish you a magical new moon in Gemini. Take care. Bye.